Hello and welcome back to another movie review. As always, I'm Kelly, and I just got out of The Gentleman. Admittedly, a little while ago. This last week with school and my new job has been a little rough, so it's been hard to get these videos out on time. So I do apologize for the tardiness of this review. I am going to try to get back on track here in the next week or so. So expect a few more videos than usual. But now that the lists are out of the way, let's get back into the full movie reviews. And this movie is awesome. No joke, I am genuinely questioning why this came out in January. Like, really, why? This movie is amazing. It's well thought out, it's funny, it's action-packed, and it's got some really good, clever, witty dialogue. Why is it a January release? Now, I've said this before, but January is typically a dumping ground for Hollywood, where they put the really crappiest of films, or the ones they have genuinely no faith in. So I had to ask, who didn't have faith in a Guy Ritchie film about a mob? Who didn't have faith in a Guy Ritchie film like this? Like, seriously, this isn't Aladdin. Aladdin got, big summer box office drop, and it was garbage. But this is Guy Ritchie doing what Guy Ritchie does best. Why did you put it in January? It just boggles my mind. I mean, I'm glad it's here because this was a genuinely good, fun ride, and I'd highly recommend that everyone go see it, immediately, but still, this is baffling. Now, I will admit, though I'm giving it a lot of praise, it's not a perfect movie. There are plenty of moments where you're just like, okay, maybe trim that down a bit. You make this a little bit shorter, a little bit snappier. It probably would have been a little bit better. Also, the story itself is really convoluted, which is kind of par for the course for a movie like this, but it's still really convoluted and makes it hard to explain in detail. Personally, though, this is probably the best thing that came out in January that wasn't an Oscar bait movie, and I highly recommend to go see it. Now that we're done with the non-spoiler talk of this, let's actually get into what I think it did well and what it did badly, specifically with some light spoilers. Starting off, the acting in this is on point from pretty much everybody. Everyone is giving it their A game, including people like Matthew McConaughey, who I just kind of expect to sleepwalk through films these days, because, he's one of those guys that he's to the point where he doesn't really have to try anymore, but in here you can tell he's really, expanding out. He has a calm control in this that is genuinely terrifying at times. And when he releases that in the few scenes that he does, you're fucked. But honestly, the two that really stand out as the guys in this movie are Hugh Grant and Charlie Hunnam. Hugh Grant is playing hella off type in this movie. He's usually the suave, sophisticated, ladies' man, gentleman. He's usually the gentleman. No, in this one, he is a piece of shit. He is a blackmailing turd who may also want to fuck everything that has legs. And Hugh Grant is clearly having fun with this role, because half the lines that he just says offhandedly, I swear he's ad-libbing, because I just have a hard time believing that a writer actually came up with so many of these witty comebacks, which the writer is Guy Ritchie, because he wrote and directed this film. But even though Hugh Grant is really a small part of this movie, I will admit that he is just mesmerizing when he's on screen. Every time the guy opens his mouth, I am just glued, because I just want to know, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But the other standout here is Charlie Hunnam, and by far, this is the best thing I think I've seen him in, period. The last thing I can remember him being in was that King Arthur Guy Ritchie film that really, really sucked, badly. Here, though, he doesn't come off as the frat boy douche that he did in that version. Here, he comes off as a genuinely sophisticated gangster with, again, a very, very calm, controlled nature who can get you to sit down by just telling you to shut up. He actually does that at one point in the movie, and it's genuinely gripping. But over his intensity, it's just how cool he comes off. This man, even when things are going awry and he is completely outside of his element, he is always in complete control. He never gets frustrated. And when he does get frustrated, it always seems like that controlled frustrated. He's not screaming, he's projecting. At one point in this movie, Charlie Hunnam is just lecturing a room full of drug addicts. And by God, it is probably the best characterization you can give this guy in one monologue. Even when the drug addicts are having a hard time following him because they're not sure whether or not they walked in the room with Marvin Gaye fingering their girlfriend, Charlie Hunnam just tells them flat out, just drop it. You were lost long before Marvin Gaye ever entered the picture. If you took out all the action in this movie and just left it to straight talking from all these characters, you would genuinely just be entertained from just that. Especially between Hugh Grant and Charlie Hunnam, because this is just the best dialogue I've heard in a while. But that's not to say that the action isn't good, because it's really good. It's brutal when it needs to be. It's a bit choppy when they try to do more like heavy-duty fist fights. At one point, there's a group of toddlers, as they call, which are a bunch of gym junkies who really know how to fight. The few bits you get with them actually fighting, it's not the greatest. But it is shot and directed like a music video to make it more entertaining, because it actually does segue into a music video. But I will say that a lot of the action that is in this film feels a lot more poignant and on point. You know, it's not big, long fight scenes or anything like that, or even big, long conflicts. It's more of a short but sweet type of situation. They don't draw these out, because if they drew them out, then we get John Wick, and that's not what this movie's going for. As I said, this movie's more about its talking sequences. When they have to get down and resort to fighting, it's mostly because things have gone really, really south. But with all those positives said, there is a couple of things I can list as negatives here. The big one that is the negative here is that there are several sequences that feel like padding in this movie, mostly because they're trailer fodder. Yeah, you saw the trailers where you have, like, Matthew McConaughey shooting up that guy, and he's like, when the lion's hungry, he eats. And while that scene is inside of this movie, you have to put it in context, because in context, it's pretty much just trailer fodder filler. The first half of this movie is basically Hugh Grant as a private eye telling Charlie Hunnam what he's discovered over the course of his investigation over the last week or so. And he even writes it up as a script and says, hey, you can totally sell that, just give me some royalties for it. Which later he actually does go to Miramax and pitches them this script, which that's just a funny fourth wall joke. Just want to point that out. But while Hugh Grant is telling this story, he sometimes embellishes it quite a bit. And that's where you get that whole sequence where Matthew McConaughey drew a gun on this guy and started just shooting him up and doing the lion eats line. But then Charlie Hunnam basically calls him out and is like, that's not what happened. Don't sell me this bullshit. And Hugh Grant's like, oh yeah, I was just seeing if you're paying attention. You know, embellish it a little bit for the script, that's all. But then they just reverse the scene and then go to where it actually happened type situation. And again, that whole sequence, while kind of amusing, it's just there to pad out the trailer and make this movie feel like it's something that it's not. And it's not the only time this movie does it. When they're introducing one of the antagonists of this film, his name's Dry Eye. He's played by Henry Golding. You see him in the trailer. He's the Asian guy who's just shooting everything up. Again, that's an embellishment, because the second they actually show that on screen, again, Charlie Hunnam calls him out on it, says, of course, I'm just saying if you're paying attention, you know. He's actually more like the Asian James Bond, and then we get a much more accurate interpretation of what he's going to be like in the movie. But again, you can tell that other sequence was just there for trailer fodder, and it could be easily cut from this movie, and you pretty much lose nothing. There's just a few moments like that where I just feel that this movie is indulging a little bit too much, and it would have been a little better if they cut it back just a bit. But also, there's just some other sequences that just feel like they go on just a little bit too long. A couple of talking sequences where they have an entire segment of this where they say, wait, what did you say? No, he said that. No, you said that. You said, look, that doesn't matter. Let's go on to this. And while a few of them are funny, they're not all necessary to be there, and it just feels like dialogue padding. Again, it feels like you could have just cut a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, and shorten this movie up by about 15, maybe 20 minutes tops, and it would have been a much more snappy, in-your-face, perfect type of film. But even with all that said, this is one of the best January films I've ever seen. And I can wholeheartedly recommend that everyone go and see this. The second it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm buying it. Like, first day. I don't care if it's $40. I spent $70 on that thing over there, if I can point my thumb right. This, I'm going to buy the shit out of it. My final recommendation is that this is a see it. It's not quite a must-see, because I feel that this is still the start of the year and we're going to be getting better. Hell, a lot of the Oscar bait stuff I can still say is better. I'd definitely go watch 1917 over this. However, I will say, go see it. You will not regret spending any money on this movie whatsoever, and you will love yourself because you saw this instead of the actual January films out, like Turning and other horror films. God, I have so many movies I gotta catch up on. So yeah, final verdict, see it. And that's it from me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen The Gentleman? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Let's get some healthy discussion going. And as always, if you like what you saw, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. All of it helps my channel grow. I've already hit the 100 subscriber mark. Hopefully I can hit 1,000 by the end of the year. That's the goal. I'm crossing all of my fingers and hands. Also, I do stream games on Thursday nights from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Friday. Currently, we're working through Pokemon Platinum, although we're finishing up that fairly soon, maybe in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month tops. And we'll move on to a Final Fantasy game. I will put a poll on Facebook and Twitter to see which game you guys would prefer. And yeah, that's it from me, so I guess I'll see you all next time.